Hello, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi,
How are
hi.
you?
I'm doing good. Was that Ajay who is refusing to come on camera?
हाँ वो बोल रहा है अभी
Because we can still see his shoulder. Hi, hi. So those were the two special guests who will keep hopping up.
हाँ इधर ही घूम रहे हैं तो
Yeah.
you want Ajay sitting here or floating रहेगा whenever
Whatever works. If he wants to join, he can very well pull a chair.
ठीक है तो ऐसे करते हैं we'll get him in
Sure, sure.
from time to time आ जाओ आप बैठ जाओ you can hear
But you can just
आप
be
जाओ
on the camera, Ajay.
आ जाओ आप बैठो at least
Hi, Ajay. Good morning.
see only
Okay, people are joining in. How is it there? How's the weather?
weather is बहुत अजीब हो रहा है like I think low pressure थोड़ा built हो रहा है so it's like hot humid but suddenly it starts like becoming very
It's
cloudy
been
and
raining since morning. It's been totally
okay.
raining since morning. It's just slowed down for a bit, but it's been raining quite much.
You're in your मतलब
I'm
where
in
you
Gujarat.
like, you're in like what part of Gujarat है what part of Gujarat
Right now I'm in Anand.
अच्छा okay चलिए
Okay.
so बताइए आप how do you want to start this
Oh, we'll start with you telling us about you, but first I'll just say hello to everybody who's joined
yeah
in.
please
Thank you for joining in. Today we have with us the Kalinga Desiagro Foundation. We have Anshuman, and the other person we have is Ajay. Wave to the people, everybody. Wave. Okay. So we have them, and they are working with the producers in Koraput, right? In
okay
Odisha. Now, a lot of us don't even know that Odisha grows coffee. So today we're going to talk about that. And hopefully by the end of this session, everybody will know that Koraput grows good coffee and they want to try it.
absolutely
Okay. So my first question for you is, tell us about the Kalinga Desi Agro Foundation, who you are, what do you do, when did you start, how did it happen?
So, essentially, I am a lawyer by professional background. I have nothing like my only connection to coffee essentially was in fact that I was a home brewer, and it's shameful to admit at this stage, but I didn't know my own state produced coffee. Right, that was the first point. Somewhere around 2019, the state government started putting up counters or kiosks for the tribal coffee that they procure and process, which is branded as Koraput coffee. And I happened to be at one of the kiosks, and I was pleasantly surprised that my own state produced coffee. And until then, I'd been having coffees from all across India, and thanks to all the third wave coffee roasters, the options were suddenly, there were many options available, and I realized that there was not at that point of time, I don't think Koraput had been on any of the coffee roasters, offerings. So the idea was, that at that point of time, the idea was that at some point of time, I wanted to do something related to coffee, but obviously, I had a different trajectory in terms of where I was heading. Post-pandemic, actually, when this entire organization, this entire project took shape, because I came back home after I was outside. I was in Bombay, then in Goa, and I finally had the opportunity to be in Odisha for a long stretch of time. And when during that period, we actually started traveling. Me and my other co-founder, we started traveling around the countryside. No particular agenda. We just wanted to explore, and we couldn't obviously travel out of the state. So, one of those trips was a trip to Koraput, and that just sort of like sealed everything in. The interest in coffee, and then just looking at what was happening on the ground, meeting and interacting with the coffee producers, understanding what problems they were facing. All of that sort of came in together, and we have a third co-founder as well who's interested in a social impact angle, and she'd been looking for something to be done in the rural parts of the state. So all of it, I don't know, somehow came together during the pandemic. We did multiple trips to Koraput, understood the nitty-gritties of what was happening on the ground, and the understanding was it's not a commercially viable project because the quantities aren't that high. Like, you're not going to get into Koraput thinking I'm going to make a lot of money by buying a lot of coffee and selling it or trading it. That won't happen. But if we can, and there is tremendous potential in what Koraput has. It's producing great coffee, which Ajay will attest to, but there is also potential to do so much more, and that is the exciting part of this project. Just to put it in brief, what the project attempts to do, we are trying to work with coffee growers at farm level. We want to make sure that they produce the best coffee that they can, without being too strenuous on their own, resources in terms of finance, in terms of labor, etc. Two, we've set up the first coffee board licensed curing works in the region. There was no curing works that was located locally. So coffee had to be clubbed together and sent across to curers in Karnataka. So the identity of each farm was getting lost because coffee was being aggregated as coffee from a particular region, and which was again getting blended into maybe coffees from Karnataka as well. So the idea was again to place a curing works locally so that we can process lots coming out of farms individually and even multiple lots coming out of each of the farms individually. So that's what we've done. Uh, it has a storage unit as well, which allows coffee growers to again, sell their coffees over a period of time if they want to, and not, go for block sale immediately as soon as the harvest season is over. So that was the idea behind, setting up basic infrastructure that will help coffee growers move up from sellers of raw coffee to sellers of green beans. That was the second attempt, and this will obviously have impact on their earnings because they'll obviously be making slightly better margins compared to when they were selling in raw form. And the third thing, and which is why Ajay and Sami and I here, is we also want to popularize the concept of Koraput coffee because again people don't know about it. This also includes in Odisha itself. So we are organizing events here so that people get sensitized to what specialty coffee is, and for them to also understand and appreciate that coffee is being produced in the state. And so that third leg of just marketing the brand of Koraput coffee is what we are realistically working towards. So with these three, we hope that the general ecosystem of coffee in Odisha, coffee in Koraput will get a boost, and we'll have newer entrants also coming in, newer roasters, newer cafes, and all of that. Like, it will be a big boost to the system.
Uh, Before I ask you my next question, Anshuman, can you move a little inside because I can see only half your face in the frame.
Okay. Better?
Yeah, this is much better. Yes, I
Okay,
could only
awesome.
see half your face so far.
Okay.
All right. So, like you said, you were a corporate lawyer. You came home during the lockdown. You never thought of going back to law, or you were like, I'm done with
So
this.
I see the idea of leaving the corporate law life was always there because I had reached a point of saturation, which is why I took I went to Goa and took like a little bit of a break. I was doing a bit of consultancy. I still continue doing consultancy on the side because that's bread and butter for me. But yeah, I've been fortunate enough that the project has picked up traction. I wasn't sure whether a social impact project of this nature for coffee would get funded in the first place, but we were lucky enough to get, like-minded people that wanted to, put their resources behind us. So now it's just a question of pushing it forward the way we had planned, not lose that
Yeah,
momentum. So I think it's very important for me to also personally give that time, and it's very satisfying. That's the more important thing, which I wasn't getting when I was
absolutely.
in my previous profession.
Okay. So, uh, where all is coffee produced in Odisha? Odisha is quite a big state. So, what parts of
Absolutely.
Odisha produce coffee, and how much coffee gets produced in the state?
So, Odisha, so Koraput is actually one of the districts in Odisha. It's a big district, but primarily, if I would put it in terms of numbers, 95% of the production from the state of Odisha comes from Koraput region itself, because that's where, in fact, the coffee board's extension office is also located, and somehow plantations have taken shape in terms of number of plantations in that particular district. But there are six districts in Odisha which have microclimate, which have the soil, in which have the altitude, etc., for producing coffee. So, out of that, at least I know of three other districts where there are existing plantations. In one particular district, there is just one plantation taken up by this, person who just wanted to develop a coffee farm on his own. So there is a district called Keonjhar, which has coffee. There is a district called Kandamal, which is again another, it's a tribal dominated district. There is a place called Daringbadi, which a lot of people in Odisha refer to as the Kashmir of Odisha. So that has a coffee plantation. There is a district called Raigada, which has a few plantations as well. So altogether, there are about.
Okay, we're having a little technical glitch. We will sort this out. I'm so sorry for this. We are working to get KDF back. It's just a little technical glitch that's happening. Give us a minute. We're sorting it out. Thank you, everybody, for joining. There's a little technical glitch at our end. We are sorting it out. Give us just a minute. We'll have KDF back soon.
Hi.
Okay, we have them back on board.
Hi. Sorry.
No problem, no problem. This happens. We are both in bad weather today, so technical issues happen. It's completely all right. Can you hear me clearly?
Hi. Uh, is it clear now?
Yeah, it is clear now. And you can tell Ajay it was me calling him. It's nobody else.
Yeah. stepped out to take that call.
He went to answer a call. That was me calling him, asking what's happening.
Yeah, he's back now.
No problem. Now that you're back, you
Okay.
were telling us where is coffee produced in Odisha.
Yeah, so about six districts in Odisha have the necessary, let's say, the uh, prerequisites for growing coffee, and primarily Arabica. But that's the place where it is grown mostly in Odisha right now. But 95% of the coffee comes from plantations in Koraput, and it's Araku coffee. Araku is just across the with. Am I audible? Like, is my
Yeah, it's better now. Yes. I was about to
yeah.
ask if you want to run a hotspot on another cell or something.
No, I think okay. So yeah, like everybody must have heard of Araku Valley coffee, right? So Araku Valley and Koraput sort of share similar geographical
Also, can
features
you be a little bit
because
louder? Your voice is really very soft.
acha,
We
okay,
cannot
okay,
get it
okay.
very clear. Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying people would have heard of Araku Valley coffee. Like Araku is probably a little better known compared to Koraput in the coffee circles. Now Araku Valley and Koraput actually more or less share similar topographical and geographical features divided by border and just like Araku happens to be in Andhra and Koraput happens to be in Odisha state. But the biggest difference is Araku Valley coffee is completely tribal grown coffee. So you will find a estate based plantation in Araku. But
Yeah.
Koraput is unique in the sense that there are both tribal plantations and estate based plantations. So one of the bigger things that we are going to fight and we want to make sure people know is that Koraput coffee, there is no generic Koraput coffee. There are different kinds of coffees coming out of Koraput. There is tribal grown, tribal picked coffee. There is coffee which is also coming out of private estate plantations where they even are interested in introducing different kinds of processing techniques to bring out different lots. So within a plantation itself, you'll have a lot of variety to come out, which I haven't seen in coffees from Araku. Araku pretty much has it's got a more I would say a homogeneous profile, which sort of I think people attribute to Koraput as well. That all of it is tribal coffee and all of it tastes more or less the same, but that's a myth.
Okay. So, how is the land and the microclimate in Koraput, in Odisha? How is it suitable for coffee? Is it not suitable for coffee, but you're still trying? How is it?
Yeah, so it's the beginning of the Eastern Ghats. Like the stretch where coffee is grown in Odisha is the northernmost part of the Eastern Ghats, which I think eventually like leads up to the Tamil Nadu as well. But for the Odisha part, the thing is Eastern Ghats. I think a lot of people don't know that Eastern Ghats is colder than the Western Ghats. So Eastern Ghats has obviously there has been lot more sort of erosion, if I could say. I'm not sure if that's the right term for it. But there is a lot of discontinuity. Like it's not continuous
Yeah.
region. So and the hills have generally a lower elevation. Like it doesn't go very high. From the highest peak in Odisha is Deomani, about 1600 meters above sea level. But most plantations that we've gone to are between 900 to 1000 meters above sea level. So
Okay.
again, one of the reasons is from a coffee board perspective as well that they prefer Arabica to be grown at 900 plus elevation. So they've also, when they've provided their technical input in development of different plantations, they make sure that it's at least at 900. But I have not seen very high elevation coffees here. But the potential is of course there because the quantity under the quantity sorry, the area of land that is currently under cultivation and I'm talking about area that's suitable for coffee cultivation is probably 2% of the total area that has been identified as capable of being home to a coffee plantation. So the utilization is abysmally low. There is potential for Odisha to produce much more than what is being produced. And to put things in context, what we are producing if I am not mistaken, the last coffee board report that's on, I think, the database that they update from time to time, the annual production from Odisha has been about 400 to 450 metric tons overall. If we compare that to say in Andhra Pradesh, they're producing about 10,000 to 12,000 metric tons. And
Hmm.
that, if we compare to Karnataka, we're looking at about 3.5 lakh metric tons. So
Yeah.
the quantity is very, very, very small when we're looking at India itself. But yeah, I mean, uh, it's the potential is there for it to for there to be so much more.
Definitely. Plus, Karnataka has been growing coffee for so long. I mean, most of the
Yes,
planters you go and talk to, they'll be like, we are fourth gen and fifth gen. And if
absolutely.
you go to, say, Chikmagalur or Coorg, any direction you look, there's just coffee growing. You'll
True,
find
true.
silver oak, there'll be pepper vines on it, there'll be coffee plants. Every direction you look, both sides of the road, everywhere it's just coffee. And I know last time I was going there by bus, there was the irrigation was going on, and a spray of water came into the bus through the window. I'm like, what happened? I was in a bus.
Wow.
I'm like, I'm drenched all of a sudden. And what happened? Then I realized, okay, that was the irrigation spray that came on. Okay. So
No, but
that's
yeah, you
close
won't see
to
similar
the
scenes.
road
I
the
don't think.
plantations are, yeah.
Yeah, here the plantations are little like it's not that easy to access. It will not be like side of the road. Of course, there are a couple of plantations which you will be able to access more easily than the others, but accessibility also is one of the issues that we have to deal with on the ground. A lot of off-roading, which is also good, like
Yeah.
in terms of like enthusiasts that want to visit a plantation to enjoy the experience of off-roading. So yeah.
All right. So what are coffees are produced in Odisha? Like Arabica, Robusta, what kinds of Arabica?
Primarily Arabica, because that is where, I mean, when you're producing small quantity, the idea then, and a lot of it has to do with how Coffee Board went about giving their technical guidance when the coffee farms were just being set up, and they said that it's, you're getting a better price out of Arabica. So, and elevation, of course, as I mentioned, 900 meters plus. So, Arabica is the only thing that is grown here. There are some very small quantities of Robusta coming out. Like when I'm saying very small, like compared to Odisha's production itself, it's very small. So,
Yeah,
I,
small of the smaller.
yeah, yeah. So,
But
yeah, I
is
mean,
your
there is very small
elevation
quantity of Robusta.
is your elevation and everything more suited to Robusta, or is Arabica still favorable?
Right now, I think we're like the plantations that are currently existing, the ones that are sort of in the process of being set up, also some of the new plantations are being developed, some of them are being expanded. All of them are focusing primarily on Arabica. Nobody has pushed like Robusta plantation yet. Having said that, the state government has come up with a coffee expansion plan, which they're calling Coffee Mission, which is
Hmm.
essentially for for livelihood generation for a lot of these people in the rural region. They have stated that they'll be pursuing plantations which are a mix of Arabica and they'll be Robusta as well. So going
Okay.
forward, maybe like 5 to 10 years down the line, we'll have more of Robusta coming in. But for now, people are still sticking with Arabica as their preferred crop.
All righty. What kind of Arabica is produced? Which variety most commonly? Or
Again,
what
a
all
lot of
are
mixed
there?
varieties. Yeah. So I think initially what had happened was primarily Kaveri was being given, and there is a logic. Kaveri had by far a better yield, and the idea was coffee to be a source of income for people. And for that, obviously, like yield is very important. And Kaveri varietal was what was given. Unfortunately, Kaveri is susceptible to leaf rust, which they came to know later. And at that point of time, very few plantations had diversified into multi-varietal sort of a farming structure. Most of them were like, like they'd just taken Kaveri completely, like an entire farm of Kaveri. And today, in fact, there continues to be a farm which has only Kaveri varieties. That everyone has taken time to, just keep up
Okay.
with the initial logic of I want better quantity because that helps to have bigger income. But Over a period of time, because of leaf rust issues, because of maintenance related aspects, people started diversifying. So today we'll have like different plantations have different sort of mix of varietals. We have selection 6, we have selection 9, we have selection 5B. We have Chandragiri is something that is there in almost every farm, and it's been one of the better scoring coffees also from the region. And some people have like they through their own initiative they've brought in varieties. They're Patwai, one of the farms has Patwai. So again, a lot of it is what is available with the coffee board, because when you're a coffee plantation in a remote region, you don't have access to a lot of information. You go to the to the people that have the right technical information, and that's the coffee board. The coffee board itself has an entire, like they have a huge plantation attached to the office, and that's also the source of coffee seeds for a lot of planters in the region. So they have everything. Like it's like they've set it up in a way that they have access to all varieties. But again, the choice of disseminating a particular variety depends a lot also on the geography, the topography, the specific microclimate, so to say. And that has not been, that's been a slow process of understanding what this ecosystem is actually giving, which are the ones that are giving right notice and which are the ones that are giving.
Yeah.
It's a, yeah,
But with time, I think you'll be able to figure things out better. Even the extension office that Coffee Board has, they'll be able to provide better
absolutely,
information. Because
absolutely,
to understand anything in coffee, it takes a lot of time.
absolutely, absolutely. And this is
But
again,
it's
like
not,
you mentioned,
now at least it's not much of a monocropping in Koraput. Like you earlier mentioned, it was all Kaveri, which is very susceptible to
absolutely,
the
absolutely.
Iliac, the leaf rust fungi. All right. So my next question is, these plantations, wherever the coffee is grown, are they owned by the tribals or are they just working on the farm? Like who owns the farm, who is managing
Okay.
it?
So for the tribal plantations, the model that was put in place, and this has been something that has been an ongoing, even currently there are plantations which exist in this manner. The state government identifies a tract of land, mostly government-owned land or forest land, which the government has control over, near a tribal hamlet. Typically, these would be involving families as low as 20, 25. So they'll select, say, about 20, 25 beneficiaries, male members representing the family. They identify a tract of land where per beneficiary they identify about 1 to 2 acres per beneficiary. So, assuming there's a tribal hamlet of say about 25 beneficiaries or 25 adult male that can take care of the plantation, per person between 1 to 2 acres. If we say 2 acres, they'll identify a 50-acre patch which is close to the tribal village and which is suitable, of course, for coffee cultivation purposes. Funding is so it's jointly done by the state coffee development department and the Coffee Board of India, which provides the technical guidance. Funding comes from an agency called the ITDA, which is Integrated Tribal Development Agency. The entire program is essentially to because coffee again takes 5 years for the first commercial batch to come out, and you can't say you can't. It's very difficult for a tribal grower to wait for that long to see results of what he's doing. Uh, Government handholds the entire process till 5 years. So the funding comes from ITDA, the Coffee Development Department, and Coffee Board jointly work on developing the plantation. They earmark certain sections for different beneficiaries. And what they give are called tree pattas, which essentially is that you don't own the plantation, but you have rights to the trees that are located in this particular within that particular plantation. So each beneficiary has a identified block which belongs to him, and he has rights to maintain, rights to collect the fruits, process, sell. So in that sense, government owned, but government cannot say that the whatever produce is coming is ours. It's essentially given to the tribal. Again, it has its pluses and minuses in terms of a model, but that's how it's been pushed for the last whatever 2, 2, 3 decades. Other than that, I've heard like again like this all of this data is I've collected on the ground, and it's not something that is verifiable because very difficult to track down. Like some of these tribals have also taken fields when they set up coffee plantations. Not I wouldn't call them plantations, small farms, like even like 1 to 2 acres in their own own land. So that has happened, but we don't have a system where we record. So it's very difficult for us to identify those. The government developed plantations; those are all recorded. So you have a you have a
Proper
way to
tracks or
verify.
record.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, got it. So when and how was coffee introduced to Odisha?
So, yeah, that's a good question. Um, like we have the story of Baba Budan bringing the seven seeds into India. That's the legend of how Indian coffee came to be. For Odisha coffee, even like if you go to Koraput, you go to the office of the coffee development department. The story essentially is there was a Maharaja, the erstwhile Maharaja of Jaipur district, which was Koraput was part of the Jaipur district. He was a coffee aficionado, and he had gone somewhere and he got hooked to coffee and he wanted access to coffee. So he had a private plantation of his own somewhere in the 30s.
Yeah,
Now, why I say this is like a maybe like an urban myth or a story which is being built is because that plantation doesn't exist. I couldn't at least track this particular plantation, and if it's not that old, right? 1930s is still relatively. There should have been some trace of where this particular plantation was. So I would say actually coffee plantation, if you say where did it start, it started with a particular hydroelectric project which was happening. There is a dam called Nagpur Dam, very old dam in the 1950s. It was developed. And in the catchment area, because it was a very big dam, there were issues like, there were challenges, particularly for soil conservation purposes. So there is a soil conservation department of the state government which is
yeah,
responsible for this particular project. And they thought that introducing coffee plants because it's grown under the shade of silver oak and other shade trees. Uh, they thought that it would prevent, it would be a good way to prevent siltation. So large, large scale coffee plants were then set up in around the Mashroom dam area, and those still continue today. Those, so I would say about 60s is when proper coffee cultivation started, but it would be not be, it would take another couple of decades. 1980s is when the first estate-based coffee plantation really took off. There's a gentleman called Pradeep Mahanti. He was the first person to come down between 1984 5 is when his plantation sort of took off. Right now, it's a very big 220 acre plantation. It is the largest plantation by far. Uh, so he was the first person who came into Koraput to establish a coffee plantation, and that sort of because someone else had done it, and
then you
there was a track.
also want to do it.
Yeah.
Like people
So
see and want to do it.
yeah, yeah. So that probably gave that comfort factor for a lot of other people to also come in. So 1990s actually, when a lot of I keep sharing information with a lot of people. 90s is when pretty much the private estate coffee plantations boom happened.
By the way, did you also know that coffee has existed in India most likely well before Baba Budan came to India?
I didn't know that.
It is. There are historical
It's very interesting.
evidences of it. In fact, we have native varieties that have been in India, like which likely predate Arabica, Robusta, and all that. And there was a time when coffee grew in the Himalayas also.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of posts about these indigenous coffee
Yeah.
varieties very
And
curious
that
to
kind of makes sense also because just next door, Nepal is still growing coffee in the Himalayas. So it's quite likely that even this side of the border, we had coffee in that region. And all the
absolutely.
native varieties that we have, they predate the Arabica Robusta that we have right now. And we have lots of native varieties.
Because I think more research and
Yeah, but
when
then
more
these were
information sort of
growing
filters
quite
into
wild actually. So they were never cultivated commercially. But then
commercial.
there's evidences of even the Mughals drinking something like a coffee. Of course, they
Okay.
don't have the brewing methods that we have now. but there was something on similar lines that they used to have. And it's been in India for possibly since before Baba Buddha.
Yeah. That story needs an update then. The history of Indian coffee.
Something like that is a story that I have sitting in editorial right now, should get published in another month or so, month or two
Oh,
maybe.
wonderful.
Yes,
Look
but
forward
it
to reading that.
focuses specifically on one native variety. It doesn't capture a lot on the history side. It just touches on it. But yeah, that's an interesting thing. Getting an international
Wonderful.
publication interested in the history of Indian coffee is not something that sells actually. Look, unless we create an Indian coffee magazine who will be interested in such a story, it's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are books that talk about this. There are historical references. You can talk to culinary anthropologists who will be able to tell you more. So there are references about it. All right.
Awesome.
So the next question is, what is unique about the coffee from Odisha?
So for this question, I'll let
You're calling
Ajay take over
Ajay for this?
because yeah, he's cupped all our coffees. He's been one of the
Come on, Ajay, where are you
captains for
hiding?
Koraput. Ajay is coming. Come over. Yes.
Hello, Ajay.
Hi. How are you?
Hi. Sorry for the noise. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me.
My question is, what is unique about coffee from Odisha?
So many things. I mean, new things will also be coming, but as of
I need
now,
you to be a little louder.
okay, okay, yeah. So many things, and many things are yet to come. We will be working on the quality of this coffee and improve to different levels. But yeah, it is for sure. There are coffees which are scoring above 85. There are lots which were processed very well. There are planters who were putting effort since years. So there are farms. There is one farm called Namangla which has been Pine Cup Award champion in one of the years. So yeah, so that is one more thing. Like the coffee and the quality for sure is at par in Koraput. It had been worked, but it just had been sidelined by the other overpowering brands and yeah, it's I mean very small efforts and definitely it will take to some different heights. And also there are so many planters and so many farms which have good varietals and we can introduce good varietals in there. We can introduce and they are open to introduce rare varietals, new varietals and also process the coffees in certain way and like so that they gives the customer experience. Then obviously there are roasters who are buying and coming up with their products soon. They're putting their products in line also. So you will for sure definitely see Koraput coming up in different brands, and also it is there available in their own brand, which is Odisha brand. Yeah, and it is very important to know that Koraput has a specialty coffee, and there was a time when it used to get bulked with other region coffees and sold off with the same in the name of their region. And and Koraput has its own identity. Odisha has its own identity and unique flavor profile. So there are varieties like Chandragiri which gives tea rose, floral. Then there is selection 5B which gives nice jasmine, aromatic caramel, roasted almonds. But definitely there are good coffees and we can work and improve the coffee. Yeah.
All right. So that tells us about how it is unique. Is it a lot of washed coffee? Is it a lot of naturals? What's the process most commonly done?
Okay. Because uh, there was not much experimentation happened in processing as of now. And they need
I mean, so we are the people who are now introducing them to the specialty market. They were not exposed to specialty market. They are into volumes and I mean good quality volume coffee. So they have like 20 tons full washed range, which is going in good cafes also. But the only thing is, I mean, they need some exposure to this kind of place where they can experiment the coffee, implement it on their farm, and get out. They need a feedback system where whatever they are experimenting, they need a solution where they can find what this coffee will stand in market, average international market, where it will stand. So we are giving them this solution through our curing works, then my cupping work and all that where your coffee is standing, what improvements can be done, and how you can go further, include more in your collection of your coffees. Like they have washed, mechanically washed, fermentation washed, and yeah, soon they will have again natural. And they have had natural this season also, but next season maybe we'll introduce more of uneven naturals. Mute. It's mute. I can't hear.
I am so sorry. Can you hear me
I,
now?
yeah, but you're not visible.
Can you see
Yeah,
me now?
yes, you
I'm
can.
sorry, I'm sitting outside in the garden and there are hawkers going out. So there was a sabzi wala and he was like, Aloo le lo, kanda le lo, which I did not want coming on the audio there. So I had muted myself because he was
Yeah,
talking
I can
about aloo
understand.
kanda tomato.
We will say coffee le lo.
Yeah, that's all that's
Arab,
left yet.
Arabica le lo. Selection 795 le lo.
I'll get you a lari. Both of us can go and sell like that, huh?
Perfect.
Ah, okay. Who's answering the GI tag question that I have? Does Odisha coffee have a GI tag like the coffee from other parts of the country? Yes. Tell me, Anshuman. Does
But
Odisha coffee have a GI tag like
again,
other parts of the country? I know you've mentioned that you have covered your Koraput coffee, the Odisha coffee gets covered in the Araku GI tag.
yes,
But I've been to Araku and I know that Koraput is not next door to Araku. It's quite some
absolutely,
distance
absolutely.
away. Though maybe at
So
least the land wise or the climate wise, there might be some similarities. But why does Odisha coffee not have its own GI tag? Especially because I know how badly Odisha has fought for the Rasagulla.
I will say one is lack of awareness within the state itself where the coffee was
Okay.
being produced.
Yeah.
Because so I mean, see, one is I wouldn't blame anything, but when a GI tag is actually obtained, there is a process to it, right? There's a legal process involved. There's an application. Someone makes an application, someone has to vet it. Then they obviously put it out for objections. That is when the necessary stakeholders have to say that no, you cannot cover this particular region out of this particular GI tag, or you cannot grant this GI tag to such and such person. Otherwise, it is very, it's difficult for a government authority to really verify a lot of this information. That's how the system works. What happened was when Karaku decided to go for its GI tag, they realized that okay, here's a small coffee growing region, very trivial compared to what the total production essentially is, similar sort of geographical, topographical feature. So I don't know who took that call, but somebody decided that let's cover Karaku region as well. So the so that that went into the system. I'm sure objections were, there was obviously a request for raising objections to that. Unfortunately, at that point of time, maybe people knew that it was being applied. They didn't think that it would be a challenge in the sense that maybe at that point of time, because Koraput coffee was not known, it was better for it to be sold as Koraput coffee. Maybe that was the point of view. I don't know at that stage what had happened, but yeah, I mean, if you don't raise an objection, the government is just going to really care about who the verification is, right? So so happened that Araku coffee continues to include Koraput region within its GI tag. So it's difficult for us to now, because it's already been granted, it's difficult for us to now say that, okay, give a separate GI tag to Koraput. It's going to be a long process again, like reopening
But
and again.
wasn't the GI tag that came from the for the Odisha Rasgulla, it came way after the West Bengal was granted that. Odisha got
No, they
the
raised
GI
an
tag for the
objection. No,
Rasgulla only in 2019, whereas West Bengal has had it for way longer.
no. So they made an application. For the longest time, the GI tag application was pending. When they made
Okay.
that application is
Because
when
both the
so it,
states were debating about
yes,
who owns it.
yes, 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 yes. If West Bengal had not made that application that we want a GI tag for it, we would have probably never objected to it because that rivalry still continues even irrespective whether GI tag has been granted or not. But the interesting
Yeah,
point is GI tag has been granted for Kolkata Rasgulla and
Odisha
Odisha's Rasgulla separately. So
separately,
there is no
yes.
GI. Yeah, they wanted GI tag for Rasgulla itself, and the entire point of it's like saying, like, assuming that coffee wasn't being produced in India anywhere else other than say Kurg, then Kurg coffee would have been a reference point for Indian coffee.
Indian
Like they
coffee,
could have
yes.
said that when we are talking about Indian coffee, Kurg is it, or when we are talking about Kurg, it's India. Like that sort of a connect between the product, its distinctive attribute, and the geographical region where it is produced, which is the entire point with champagne, right? You can't call
Yeah,
sparkling water to
champagne,
sparkling
scotch,
wine producer
burgundy, all of it.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So with but the same thing doesn't work in terms of coffee, like which right now, like when I'm speaking with coffee board, they're like, okay, we are over the phase where we were trying to do GI tags for different regions. Now we want to promote Indian coffees generally. Like, they want to champion Indian coffees in the international market rather than again diversifying it into different subdivisions of maybe a Chevron or a Araku coffee or a food coffee. But yeah, I mean, there was a mindset at that point of time. Some mistakes were probably made. People didn't object to it, and hence we are in a situation where legally right now coffee from Koraput is procured by someone and sold as Araku coffee. There is no challenge. Today, as we stand, if we want to sell Koraput coffee under the name of Araku coffee, there is nothing that will prevent us because there is a great kind of common Koraput.
But
We
there'll
say we want our own
also
identity, but
be probably there might be a new GI tag maybe coming for next door in Chhattisgarh. Chhattisgarh is also cultivating a lot of coffee now.
absolutely, absolutely. Oh, absolutely possible. I mean, newer places are coming up. Your Northeast has many coffees. I think they're also exploring newer regions in Gujarat itself. I think there was I remember a coffee board delegation had gone to identify. I don't know which part of Gujarat, but they were
Oh,
checking out
we
places
have
where.
had coffee growing in Gujarat for quite some time. Yeah, yeah, we have had coffee. In fact, I remember even the Agriculture University has done research on it. I am a
Correct,
student of
correct.
Agriculture University, and I know that one of our agriculture universities had whole, I wouldn't say a plantation side farm, but we had farms where we had coffee growing. Harvests was also done, so it has been standing for a while. I do not know if it is still standing, but at least until a couple of years back, it was there. We had Arabica robusta both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess yeah. I mean, give it some time,
And
and
so
I'm
this
sure
is
this
something
is
a lot of people don't know that coffee was growing in Gujarat, coffee does grow in Maharashtra, coffee grows in Odisha,
correct,
coffee grows in
correct.
Chhattisgarh, it
Yeah.
grows in the Northeast. But then we say coffee, Indian coffee, okay, Sikh. Yeah. So the next question I have is, what does KDF do? Like, how do you find members? How do you enroll new members? How do you assist the producers? And my
So right.
biggest question is, how do you convince these producers to trust you and work with you?
It's an ongoing process. Even today, I will say that we are working with all producers because until we've shown perceivable impact in terms of what we've done with one or like right now, we are hands-on working probably with 3 to 4 farms. Every harvest cycle, we go farm to farm, understand what they're doing differently. We give them feedback based on the coffee that has been marketed the previous year as to where you should be looking at next year. But the idea is that in coffee, production cannot be devoid of feedback from the marketing part. So we thought that it has to be an end-to-end process. If we are marketing coffee, we are getting specific feedback about what is in demand right now. Like Ajay was mentioning, traditionally Koraput has not produced a lot of naturals because like again the push was do wash coffee. Wash coffees will give you better price realization. Uh, so, but that's because the commercial coffee, anyways, your naturals are treated inferior to wash. And specialty coffee as a thing did not exist or did not as a concept was not something that the coffee growers also understood, and it will take also time for them to understand what exactly is the quality coffee and what are these different processes that we can use for producing coffee. So the first step essentially was for us to identify where we stand. So we took copies from across region, different, whoever was producing multiple lots, we take multiple samples. All of it was cupped. So Ajay has cupped the initial set of samples. He has a reference point in terms of where our coffees are. And then we see where there is scope for us to not, as I was mentioning before, not strain the producer in terms of finances, not ask them to invest in expensive infrastructure or upgrade expensive, their infrastructure with expensive upgrades. But bring in something different, like if varietal segregation is feasible in a particular farm, let's go for varietal segregation and see what we can what comes out of that. If we can push a small lot of naturals out and just to understand whether it's doing well or not, that is essentially the idea that we have put in place. We are not going for whole scale changes at farm level. It's going to be a very difficult proposition. Even for a coffee grower, they're working on very, coffee is not it's not the only source of income. If it was, then it would be a difficult, a difficult sort of game to be in. Coffee is intercropped with pepper, and that is how farm economy functions. The idea is how do we make sure that the current farm income level also goes up by shifting them to specialty coffee, but at the same time adding other things like, for instance, some of the farms now have introduced farm stays. So that sort of elements there in them. We are trying to see if we can do something with this year. We are trying to do something with Cascara. We are trying to see if our Cascara is getting that acceptance. All of these will essentially mean an additional source of revenue for the farm. So other than pushing farms to up their coffee from whatever their current levels are to maybe specialty levels. It's also making sure that they have other sources of income and become a sustainable again an ecosystem perhaps, and that is what we are like. That is essentially our idea. Curing works is incidental. We are setting up an infrastructure because that doesn't exist. If the infrastructure had existed, we would have the need to do it. It just so happened that it didn't exist. Uh, the marketing part is actually something that it takes things like these sessions, getting connected with the right kind of people. Because overnight, again, you can't just say that okay, here's Koraput coffee and start buying it. People need time. They need to sample the coffees, understand what the attributes are. Year on year, do we see that consistency coming into play? So a lot of these factors, like because they're so interconnected, and it's very difficult. We are acting as a bridge essentially. So that I would put it that way. We're acting as a bridge. I mean, going back to your question about how, what we're doing, I think more or less I've explained. But how we are doing it is, a lot of it is because we are affiliated with people like other, with someone, people who are enthusiastic about the cause of Koraput coffee. Our pouring works is set up. There is someone who's in charge of the operations there. We have generated local employment. We are teaching a lot of these local tribal women to gargle coffee. So that's like a source of seasonal employment for them. That's going in a very different direction. But for technical and market related information, it's very difficult to build expertise in house. So we rely more on collaborations of this nature for taking
All right.
this entire project forward. So
So
anyone, I mean, if
that
anybody is interested in Koraput and working with Koraput coffees, whether on the farm side, processing side, or the marketing side, more than happy to have a discussion and take it forward.
I will definitely take you up on that offer. I don't know about others, but I will. Yeah, because someday I'd love to visit. And I have some other idea forming in my head listening to you, but I'll talk to you on that offline, as we love to say in the corporate space. We'll take this offline.
We will take this offline. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So does Odisha consume a lot of coffee, or is it primarily a tea consuming nation? So how much of what is produced stays in the states and how much goes out?
I'll be very honest, very little. I think one of the other objectives that I have in mind is to introduce specialty coffee scene into the nation, because the entire concept of we are the only coffee producing state that does not consume coffee in those numbers. Uh, South Indian filter coffee is a thing, like it's a thing, but it hasn't spread in Odisha the way what chai has done. Like we have chai tapis all around. Coffee is not something that we usually consume. And filter coffee is like the entire point is it's not even a question of pricing. It's just not available. Like, that culture has not taken off. And the only understanding that people have of coffee is probably your instant coffee, your Nescafe and your brew. So that thing is going to change, because of course there is a bit of pride coming into play when you are consuming coffee coming from your own state. So that has not been like obviously government is very flexible in terms of promoting Koraput coffee, but it has to be a holistic approach. Like the onus is on the cafe owners as well. I mean, if they don't focus on serving good quality coffee to the consumer, then they're not doing justice to it. So by working with cafe owners, conducting sessions like the one that we're doing today, to just raise awareness about coffee, we hope that more people are sensitized to the fact that coffee is produced in the state. Coffee is a great beverage, and it's not instant coffee. The coffee is not instant coffee. There is no to it. And yeah, of course, over a period of time, if the coffee consumption actually takes off, then we don't have that much coffee anyways to sell from the states. So who knows, maybe self-sufficient. The way India
Absolutely.
could also be going forward, because I think the trend also is that a lot of people in India are moving from tea to coffee. The
Coffee,
percentage
yes.
is going up. But yeah, I mean, in Odisha, I would still say it's predominantly a tea consuming state.
Even I think on the cultivation side, what I'm hearing is a lot of people are taking out tea plantations and planting coffee in its place. They're removing the
Again,
tea plants and replacing it with coffee. It's
okay,
happening
I
to a
wasn't
small
aware.
extent in India, but I definitely know a lot of it is happening down in Sri Lanka.
Okay,
I was researching for one of the stories I've written. It's still with editorial, and that's a trend that we are finding because tea is making a lot of losses, and it's very capital intensive. It's a lot of labor intensive, and there are people who are replacing their tea plantations or abandoned plantations that they were abandoned, and they are planting coffee in it now.
but that's an interesting point that you bring up. One of the challenges I personally see for Koraput also is that it's in the transition phase from the first generation to the second generation coffee grower. So if the next generation does not believe that it's lucrative enough, they may not necessarily want to continue. I mean, for all the glamour that we put out on the label, the plantation, the varieties, there is a lot of work that happens at the plantation level. And other than celebrating the plantation, is the plantation itself, running a plantation, like you mentioned, for tea as well, it's intensive, labor intensive in
It
particular.
is very
Like
labor intensive, yes.
if a coffee grower does not find satisfaction in running the plantation, both financially and otherwise, it's a challenge. Like it will get abandoned. That process will continue over a period of
Absolutely.
time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if something is happening to tea, I mean, the tea industry should be bothered, and they should be thinking about what it needs to change. And for us also, we need to be sensitive to the fact that there could be a situation where the coffee plantations might get abandoned.
Yep, I agree. All right. So, any what are the other challenges that the producers face in Odisha? Like apart from your usual capital challenges, input challenges, labor challenges, what is specific to Odisha? What are the producers feeling out there?
I think one of the again, I don't want to be the voice for coffee producers. Of course, it would be amazing if we can do a follow-up session. We'll take maybe a couple of coffee producers on the on the stream, and let them articulate what their challenges are. But
Sure.
from again a person who works with coffee growers, one of the things that uh, there is a little more that the government could do in terms of providing infrastructural access. Like they faced a lot of challenges setting up these plantations, and they also take a pride in that. That nothing came easy. Very simply, there is one plantation where there's issue with the power. Power connectivity has been a major challenge because, of course, the government's headache. I mean, they are supposed to facilitate the entire process. Two, of course, is access, like I mentioned, road access. I mean, it's difficult. Like the state government is supposed to build access last point of connectivity. So that's been lacking in a lot of these places. And the tribal plantations are better taken care of because there is a structured funding that goes into that system. But there's no support for private coffee growers. And that's been one of the bigger, sort of complaints maybe from the coffee growers. That the, there is talk about Koraput coffee, but if you Google, Koraput coffee is always synonymous with tribal coffee, whereas the 95% of coffee grown in Koraput actually comes from private estate growers. So that recognition is also lacking. So there is one entire aspect about how the government could do a little more about the private coffee growers. Two is lack of information flowing down in terms of what is happening in the market. We are disconnected from the market. Everything happens in Karnataka, and I mean obviously because that's the hub. But it takes time for technical information, for market-related information to filter down to an extension office in Koraput. So, you know, best practices that are being followed in farms in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, and Kerala, for them to come down to Koraput, it's very difficult for it to happen organically. If somebody knows someone in Karnataka, they'll be able to call and they'll see what is happening. But there's no structured support there. Which is why, like, we know that there is demand for naturals, like good naturals in the market, but nobody has really told them that naturals is an option. They're still following those practices. Plus, even the very basics of what your processing practices, etc., are they've been set maybe 15 years, 20 years ago. There have been changes that have happened, like there are tweaks involved in the processing. That updated information doesn't slow down to a coffee grower unless they seek it. So they're just blindly following what template was set at a particular point of time. So this information filtering in is a major challenge. And besides these, there are obviously challenges. Farm can only do so much in the like, storage of coffee. Typically, as I mentioned, the reason why we focus on the storage was that it should give the flexibility to a coffee grower to sell coffee in lots, like smaller blocks perhaps, to take advantage of fluctuations in the market. Right now, what they're doing is they're just disposing it off at the end of the harvest cycle in one block. Now, that doesn't give them the advantage to play the market. Right? It's a big challenge.
Yeah.
So there is infrastructural challenges. There is lack of systemic support that needs to be given to these materials, technical information. Even like I would say, for a coffee tasting lab. Like if a coffee grower wants to go understand what is coffee essentially, tastes like, what can be done in terms of, why is this particular note coming out, or why is this problem. There is no ready like feedback available. Coffee samples have to be made. It has to be sent to the coffee board head office in Bangalore. They do the cutting. They give the feedback. So it's a long process. And effectively, I mean, that's where the difference happens, right? You get feedback on your coffee and then you work on making changes in the next cycle. If you miss that cycle, then it's again like an entire year is wasted.
Gone. Yeah.
And
All
yeah, of
right.
course, marketing has been a challenge, right? Like imagine like you're growing coffee in a particular region which doesn't have local consumption. If there was even a South Indian filter coffee market, then there would be people who would be buying coffees, like even commercial grade coffees. They would like it's not that difficult to dispose of, but because that market doesn't exist, they're not able to dispose it of locally. They need to send it to somewhere else. So that brings its own challenges. You can't like if a farm, for instance, one farm produces, the smallest farm would produce about half a ton to 1 ton of raw coffee. Now he can't just by himself sell it to a coffee curer in Canada because the coffee curer will like, give me at least one truckload consignment. This is about 8 tons. he has to find two, three other coffee growers to come together and then like, sort of execute the shipment. Uh, yeah, so basically, that sort of a challenge also exists. And yeah, we'll see how that can be tackled. It was a little difficult in the
Okay.
initial phases, but I will still say that marketing of Koraput coffee has been easy because there are certain perceptions also attached with coffee coming from a different region, especially if it's got the tag of a tribal grown coffee, then it becomes even more difficult because generally the impression is it's not going to be that great a quality, great cost but not great quality. So that's another.
Yeah, I think, see, I think even Araku does market itself as a tribal coffee, right? Because I remember being in Vizag and Araku, and the coffee packets also very often say tribal coffee.
Yes, yes. But see, that's the thing about what Nandi Foundation is doing. What they're doing is they're controlling everything, right from how the coffee is harvested, how it is processed. They have their own infrastructure in place end to end. So
Yeah,
for
yeah,
them,
yeah, they do.
making that quality statement that we are producing tribal coffee, but great tribal coffee, that's fair to say. But Nandi Foundation is not doing entirety of Araku coffee. Right? So Araku has other coffee,
Plus,
other
they
coffee
have an
varieties as well.
established cooperative structure also.
Correct.
Maybe not all the producers, but a lot of producers are a part of the
Absolutely.
established Araku cooperative.
Absolutely. Yeah. There are multiple, in fact, there are multiple farmer producer
Multiple
organizations.
cooperatives, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And they're backed by some really big people,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right? All right. So the challenges, basically, from what I understand, what you're saying is their production side challenges, their processing side challenges, and of course, one of the biggest challenges is marketing it because there's a lot of lack of awareness in the market right now about Koraput coffee, and that has to be corrected. It's only then that slowly, each step of the value chain will rise up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And I'm guessing you work on all these three aspects with the producers,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes.
All right. So now that we've talked about are coffee producers also starting to cross have other crops cultivating like say arecanut or pepper because that helps flow of
Yeah.
income and helps the farm.
I think primarily it's pepper. Like most plantations have pepper in it, but areca nut I haven't seen to be very honest. There is a lot of intercropping that happens, but that's because coffee growers are treating their farm, in a way that you would treat your own farmhouse and घर के पीछे ये थोड़ा लगा लिया, put some spices there, but not for commercial harvesting purposes. Maybe like a very small scale because there is land available to have something like a ginger or jamun or something on those lines. There are fruit trees, there are spices. A lot of it is grown depending on size of the plantation and depending on how the farm owner is treating the particular plantation. There's a lot of intercropping that does happen, but not for commercial benefit. Right?
All right.
Not on a commercial scale. Commercially, it's just coffee and pepper. Pepper is
Another common cultivation that's happening is bees. I think even
beans.
Araku does a lot of it. Yeah. Apiculture, yes. It's called apiculture, right?
No idea.
Basically honey bee
Huh.
boxes.
Yeah, but okay, I don't know whether they're doing it in plantations on a consistent. I've seen like a lot of views and whatever, but I didn't know it was
I,
in
I
across
think
all
now
plantations.
plantations are starting putting up bee boxes because you also have blossoms, right? Coffee
Correct,
blossoms
correct.
and everything. So
But that's just one small, one small window.
people start
The coffee
off with
garden.
one box and then they put up more, but then that's also a separate, like additional source of income. It's basically
Correct.
diversifying your income
Absolutely,
sources, right?
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
And you have coffee plants, you'll also have some other trees or plants in between. So the bees also get something through the year to make their
Yeah,
honey and everything.
you would need flowering plants across the
Yeah.
year for the bees to survive. So,
If this is something you're interested in, do let me know. I'll introduce you to somebody I know who will help you
yeah.
with the bee stuff.
This we'll have in our offline conversation.
Yes,
We'll discuss this.
we'll add it to our offline list. Yes. Or another thing people are doing is also dairy farming. I think your video froze.
Hi.
All right, we're back. Yes. A network glitch, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
No
But,
problem.
this,
It's completely all right. Okay, so now more of a roasting side of a question. How did you find roasters and buyers, and how did you convince them to take your
yeah, I mean,
coffee?
it was a difficult challenge actually to get people introduced to religion. What actually helped was I would give a lot of props to two roasters in particular because those were the guys who started out with. One was Dope Coffee. They actually were sourcing in fact. Like there was another entity which was working with tribal. There was called Tribo project. They had supplied some copies to Dope, and they were familiar. They were acquainted with what Koraput is bringing to the table, and my co-founder, in fact, had gone and met Rizwan, and they said that they'd be happy to sample coffees from Koraput. And what we had provided was actually put up. That was the first time that a private estate planter actually was featured on national level respect, so to say. Like, before that, it was primarily Koraput coffee, tribal coffee. That was how it was marketed out. For the first time, somebody decided that maybe give recognition to the coffee growers to the state, and that was a big thing for the coffee growers here. And but that was again a very small quantity, and that also gave us the confidence that yes, we are dealing with good quality coffee, which somebody is willing to put it out and willing to really back this coffee in the market. We were in touch, like my co-founder had given for that. He was in touch with Bhututa. We went and met Matt personally, and there was that relationship which was built over a period of time. That guys, we're doing something in Koraput, please come down. So for the first time, Shreyas and Asif both traveled down to Koraput, and obviously, I don't know what their expectations were. You've traveled to Arasu, right? Like it's not a very it gives you a very unfamiliar feeling in terms of where you travel. So, like just entering into a new territory where which you have not heard of, there's of course stories about left wing extremism, and you're obviously wary about where you're headed and whether you're safe or not. So these guys came down. We took them on a plantation tour. They saw what was happening, and they bought two lots of copies which they introduced in their debut series last year. They did the debut series where they were introducing the farms that they were working for the very first time, and Koraput happened to feature, and both the farms were listed, and a lot of material went out in terms of the specific farms and the region, which I guess brought more eyes onto the region because Mukatai obviously has a bigger reach in the specialty coffee scene. So I think that was a good takeoff point, and we've been lucky. Like there have been investors who have taken a punt immediately. Akshay from Kapi Kotai, like, he was like, I'm very interested in, like, there's no apprehension about trying the coffee bean. So I used to reach out to a lot of people saying that, just give us a shot, like, just sample our coffee. If nothing, give us a feedback because it helps us prepare better for the
Definitely,
next cycle.
yeah.
So some people have been really, they've been really cool with, wanting to try and in fact buying. So, coffee mechanics took last year. Again, there's also a cycle thing, like, because coffee roasters have a buying cycle, and we weren't aware of it, when to approach them and all of that.
Yeah.
So a lot of learning also from our end, right? But yeah, I mean, last year we had a few roasters that decided to put up coffees and introduced Koraput and specific plantations to the wider coffee community. This year, we've already, like, Alchemist has already put out one natural and one coffee
One
in the
washed,
market.
yeah.
Yeah. So we're hoping another series of launches will happen in the coming months. And this year, in fact, if all goes well, we'll have also consignment coming out in US. Basically, I'm sure you know Kaveri Coffee.
Yeah.
So she's sampled our coffees. Last year also she had sampled the coffees except she wasn't able to buy. This year she was very keen and but she's taken a couple of lots, small ones, but we are hoping that like it makes a buzz in the US as well. So exciting things coming up. But yeah, I mean, like I said, like, some of them are very enthusiastic about trying. Some of them obviously have preconceived notions, but it's going to be an ongoing process. relationship
Yeah.
building has to happen for them to be confident in
And I'm sure
buying on a regular.
Instagram has been very helpful actually. Being on
Absolutely,
social media
absolutely,
is definitely quite
absolutely,
helpful.
absolutely, absolutely.
I myself have been able to build a lot of contacts in the coffee space thanks to Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Instagram has been primarily our mode of
In fact, there are a lot of
networking
people
people.
I've still not met, but we've been talking for years.
Wonderful.
All right. So, in addition to that, how is the consumer side of the interest? You mentioned about the roaster interest. How are the consumers taking it?
For this, what I will do is I will hand over this to Samuel
Call
because
Ajay and Samehan.
Ajay Samuel because they're dealing with coffee consumers on a daily basis and they're giving
Yes.
out the coffee. Like Samuel
And my
especially because
next
he's
question is obviously how is it to roast the Koraput
yeah.
coffee?
So
So
I
yes,
think I'll
having
give Ajay
roasters on board helps.
Ajay yes. Hello.
Hello, hello. Hi. So two questions for you. And is
Right.
Ajay joining? Are we waiting for him?
Yeah, we can call Ajay sir also. We can call Ajay sir also.
Ajay sir, come on board, please, sir. Public demand.
COVID. Right.
Ajay sir is looking very serious today. What happened?
Yeah, they. Yeah.
Okay, I have a tough time calling him sir. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, two questions for you. One is how is it to roast the Koraput coffee? How is it different from roasting other coffees, say from Kurg, say from Chick, or say from Yarkad? How is roasting the Odisha coffee different? And the second question is how is the consumer interest in Koraput coffee? How are they perceiving it? Are they taking to it, liking it, not liking it? Okay, how is it?
So Koraput coffees. Firstly, I'll come to the consumer, then I'll come to my part. So people, when they come to know, especially in my shop also, and with clients who are working with the roastery. So these guys are very, blown away, I'll say, by knowing that these coffees are all tribal grown coffees over here. And they feel connected towards the community even on the deeper sense than they were before. Once they know that these coffees were tribal grown and hell lot of effort went into growing this. That is the part where we are trying to you know, market the Koraput coffee, say, let's say, not tell the traceability aspect of it. But for the roasting part and the tasting part, so these coffees have a very unique taste and they have their own, quality traits and nuances. So let's say if I have a similar sort of variety grown in central India or southern India, and the Koraput region that I think so has to offer great deal of nuance and complexity to the cup. And for roasting the coffees, I guess, yeah, like so roasting coffees has to do with mostly the moisture content and the moisture content loss that we are taking in consideration while going through all of the phases in roasting. So it is tougher to roast Arabic coffees, definitely I'll say, because we are dealing with a product that we have never tapped into before. So a lot goes behind finalizing the profile and tasting, retasting, sampling again back and forth of the roasted sample and the new sample also. So that is one aspect that is something that is different on the side of roasted side.
Okay. Ajay sir,
And
add something to this.
yeah, yeah, they're high in them.
Your voice is not clear. I can hardly hear you.
So, so the uh, the density of this coffee is being slightly than the other origin. Then
Louder. Can't hear you.
now,
Much
am I audible now?
better. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so probably this is better system. So yeah, so the thing is that the density of these coffees is slightly higher than the other origin, other region coffees. So it has some profiling homework to do before. I mean, depending on the thing. Also, I have noticed it has some unique characters which, if you profile well, will come up very nicely. And if you miss the profile, obviously you will miss up the coffee. So that's what I have noticed.
Okay.
I have been in communication with him, giving him feedback continuously on the
So
profile.
finalizing the roast profile takes like longer than usual when they have a specific strategy highlighted and then it does not turn up in the cup. So when I feel down, sometimes I have to do three roasts of the same coffee again and again till the point we don't reach to that point where there's good cup qualities coming up and density is definitely.
So I think what you're trying to say is it is important to understand that you can't roast all Indian coffees the same way.
Hmm. Obviously, same varietals will vary in different regions. So, same varietal like Chandragiri will perform very different in Karnataka. It will vary like in Tamil Nadu. Then Koraput, it will be slightly different. Then there is another varietal called 5D, which is not that much prominent in Karnataka, but 5D is very like acquainted and adapted to the conditions here in Koraput and Araku Valley. So that's one thing which has been like taken up in the market. Like also especially in US market, the Araku has been made its mark in the market because of the selection 5D, which is like unique
Yeah.
and has some nice Ethiopian characters also in it.
Though in some parts there's also to be attributed because they market themselves as a tribal coffee and that storyline really sells well.
But it's just not a storyline, to be honest. Like, we see all of these coffees come up in the market and then perform side by side the coffees that are produced elsewhere, even in northern parts of the India or you'll see central India, which is upcoming. So, like these coffees have a different character. Each of them has a different story to tell on the cupping table, on what went behind the cup and it might not be a very special, processing method, but still they'll have something that the other coffees lack, I guess.
Okay, understood. All right. I have some questions about roasted coffee and some about green coffee. Do you want me to finish with you? Do you want to bring Anshuman back and you also stay here? How do you want to go about it? Because
Both can
my
work
next
actually.
question is somebody wants to buy green beans, how do they go
Yes,
about it?
yes. Then
But then my question after that is somebody wants to buy roasted beans, how do they go
same.
about that?
He can answer both the questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
That's a lot
we
of
are just
switching
trying to
happening
manage.
today.
Yeah, classic switcheroo.
Okay. So this season, if somebody wants to buy green beans from you, do you still have them available and how can they go about it? Can't hear you, can't hear you.
Hi, am I
Yeah.
audible now? Yeah.
Yes.
So beans are still available. Green beans are definitely available. Process, there's no formal process. So just reach out to me. Like, my personal number I can share with you, or like the Insta handle is sufficient. You
Just
can
drop
just
a
drop me a
DM on
message.
Instagram. Yes.
Absolutely happy to connect. And first step, of course, is you will share the catalog. You can figure out what samples, like what lots interest you. Everybody has different sampling requirements. You send us a sample, couple, give us your feedback if you're interested. Yeah, we'll take it forward.
And you also roast beans, right?
So I don't personally roast, but there is, Samuel is doing the roasting for us. So yeah, that option is
So if
also
somebody
available.
wants to
You
buy
can,
the roasted beans, like say a home brewer like me, where do we find it? You mentioned Alchemist, and I know Alchemist has an Alchemist and a wash from you.
absolutely. So what happens, like if you want to taste coffees from Koraput region, there are different ways in which you can access it. One of course is the roasters that we have already supplied green beans to, they have developed their own profiles. So it's, we can always try those out. There's coffee, for instance, Fluent Coffee is having coffee from Koraput on an ongoing basis. But they don't have an official sales channel, right? Like they're doing it locally in market. But there is coffee available. So, like we'll be doing a lot of these informational posts in terms of where you can buy coffee. But obviously, most of it is Insta driven. So already people know that if you want to buy coffee from Koraput and
But eventually,
coffee
with
is being
time,
brought
maybe
by.
you can build a website or
Yeah,
something where you
absolutely.
can
Yeah,
put this information up.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Another suggestion, what I can give you is in your link in the bio, you can make a link tree
Yeah.
and you can list out all the roasters there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So from there
Absolutely.
itself, people can reach out to whoever roaster has your coffee.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That makes
And
sense.
who are the other roasters who are having your coffee this year?
So this year we will have launches coming from Tulum. We will have again Blue Tokai is going to put out two naturals. I'm not sure when, but it's all in the
Yeah, Blue
pipeline right
Tokens
now.
isn't
So
up yet, that I know for sure.
yeah. So Kokoro is also they'll be doing. They've taken a lot. So
Okay.
I'm sure it will come out somewhere or the other in their promotions as well. There's
What I
coffee
heard
which
was
is
they're trying to put out coffees all as soon as possible. So maybe in the next month or two, we should be
perhaps
seeing
yeah,
more coming. Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. We have so there's coffee which has gone to Cafe de Meat in Surat. Like they're going to promote the coffees big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've taken a few lots. We have coffee. So there is a local coffee roaster as well in Odisha, the first like the people who set up like a proper non-grower roaster entity called Asava Coffee. They are also putting up,
Okay.
they're doing their bit to promote coffees from the region. So yeah, I mean there are right now I find it difficult, but there have been like 2 bags, 3 bags have gone out to like different sort of roasters, and it's all going to come out like in the coming maybe couple of
Yeah.
months is
Yeah.
when we get to know. So
One by one. But mostly, I think by the end of the year, we should have everybody out.
yes,
At least that's the hope.
yes.
All
No, in
right.
fact, I think even if I'm not mistaken, Humble Bean also has Koraput coffee. But,
Okay.
uh,
Nice.
they've listed.
That's a
I've
good
seen
spread,
them
actually.
recently. Yeah, so,
You have a roaster from Ajmer. You have Kokoro roasted coffee in Bangalore. So Bangalore, of
yes.
course. You have Humble Bean again, Bangalore,
Humble
right?
is in Bangalore. Yeah.
You have a cafe in Surat that you mentioned. You have a cafe in Odisha who's having it.
Nagpur is anyways there. Like Nagpur is current coffee.
Fine. That's
Yeah,
good.
Kulum is in Bombay.
And are you exporting anything or any plans to export it?
So, yeah, I mean, the idea, of course, is we want to tap the export market again. It helps that, like, coffee, specialty coffee is still international, right? Like, the major appreciation impact is there. And we want to bring that name out in the international market. That always gives us a more legitimacy to our operations as well. But in terms of exporting, it's not an easy task, of course. So, we are in touch with a few roasters. We've sent samples. It's a long process and also expensive sending samples across
Yeah,
to different teams
definitely.
and all of that. So, Kaveri Coffee has been very helpful in that regard because they've been excited about the entire process, and we've translated like a 1.5 year relationship has finally translated into a consignment sale. But that we are routing it through a different exporter, like because this quantity is not that big, so it's going to be aggregated and sold to them. But going forward, again, we are in touch with different people, and if the quantity is worked out, then we'll be sending it out very soon. This year, in fact, has been a little downer for the European market as well. We've been in touch with a few roasters. We like the sample, but they're like we don't have the appetite to buy right now. I'm hoping like towards like as the cycle moves, we will be able to place it in multiple sources. I think yeah. But the plan is of course like we want to go
Sure.
international.
That's a good thing. And who all have been the most helpful to you in your journey? Who all would you like to say thank you?
I mean, thank you. First and most important is to the two co-founders, PP and Lavan. Both of them have been instrumental in this project in fact taking shape. We've been like in the first year we were guided by our school only woman. So like she's really helped us, clear out a lot of our basics and given us a particular direction. And now, I mean, I'm very happy to have Ajay, Sami, and come together. And, maybe it was just predestined for it to happen, but I see a movement building, and more and more people get attached to this particular project. It helps. So right now, I mean, there's also like curing work is being handled by this young guy called Samir, and he's very enthusiastic about Koraput coffee. So I think ultimately, yeah, I mean, the whole point is that you need to, like, you have to have something towards Koraput coffee for you to really stick around, and that's this group that I mentioned. I think they all share that same feeling towards Koraput coffee.
All right. And my last question: what is the future for Colombo coffee? How do you
The
see
future.
it? Yes.
I honestly would love if coffees go out. Like some of the international roasters also recognize that there is great quality coffee coming from this region. I honestly would not want too much production to happen overnight because that's going to eventually dilute the quantity of, like, dilute the quality aspects of it. I want coffee growers to focus on qualitative coffee, making a name for themselves as producers of international quality coffee, so that the region itself gains recognition when people start talking about your coffee. So like the onus is their game. And yeah, I mean, the consumer wants different, like Indian market wants something new every time. So we have to be prepared for that. We have to keep, we can't just be relaxed about the fact that अच्छा quality coffee nikal raha hai. We have to see how we can differentiate ourselves and keep producing good quality coffee. Ultimately, that's it. uh, in terms of the future of Koraput coffee from a production side. But the other aspect that I'm very keen on is to also make Bhubaneswar the capital major coffee consuming, uh, like, there has to be a proper coffee consuming scene in the city,
Yes.
which doesn't exist right now, and that's one of the that's going to help impact the producers as well if we have a strong local
Definitely.
consumption.
I think that
That's
also sets India as a whole quite apart from a lot of producing countries because
yeah,
India is one of those rare countries which has a producing scene and a consuming scene, which
absolutely,
is quite strong. That
absolutely.
does not very often happen in the countries that produce coffee. It's rare. Like Vietnam has a good production scene and a consumption scene. India has a good
Correct.
consumption and production scene, but not a lot of producing countries have that.
Absolutely. 100%.
All right, Chief.
Future is bright for India
And I
and
have
for
one
Koraput.
question in the comments here. How is Koraput being represented at the World Coffee Conference?
That's a great question. So I believe the state government is being given a pavilion to represent the ecosystem, but over and above, the growers village will have a booth where coffee growers will be there for direct interaction. That we are, we've taken up that kiosk, and we'll be essentially telling the story of the coffee growers. So do drop by, because as much as I would like to say I'm representing the interest of the coffee grower, I'm not a coffee grower. So, that one-on-one interaction with the coffee grower is always a very helpful thing, and we would love for you guys to hear from them as well.
I will be there. I will hear everything. No problem.
Awesome.
Yes. So that's all the questions I have. Anything else you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to ask?
No, I think you already done a very long session, and there's a long day ahead. Also, we have an interesting coupling, interesting event happening in Bhubaneswar. Probably for the first time we are getting this sort of an event done. So we are looking forward to that, and hopefully you've set us up for the day.
Yes. So all the best for the workshop. It's in a short while. I'm guessing at 3 o'clock, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, yes, yes,
So
yes.
thank you for taking the time to talk to me, and thank you for the live. Thank you to Ajay and Samihan for popping in and out.
I'll make sure I convey that. Thank
Yes.
you so much, Ravi. Thank you for doing this
Thank you
event.
so much for this.
Thank you. Good day.
And we'll have our offline conversation.
Of course, of course.
Yes. Lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Have
so
a
much.
wonderful day and best of luck for the workshop. Oh, hi, Ajay. Thank you. Thank you for helping us set this up. Thank you for popping in and out. And all the best for the workshop.
All the best for the workshop.
And I
Thank
just
you.
understood that he can't hear anything that I said.
All right. Chaliye, bye.
All
Thank
right.
you so
Thank you
much.
so much.